Hey guys, we are going to start in on a new unit this morning on factors. It is from the math book that we are working on in class. And so you'll see that this is NS 6-19. It's called factors. And so the learning target for this morning is going to be that you guys will use an organized way to find all pairs of numbers that multiply to a given number. That's sounds kind of confusing, but maybe a better way to put it is just finding all the numbers that you can multiply together for a certain number. Like let's say we use the number 12. You're going to find all the number pairs that multiply to 12, and then those are going to be called factors. There are a couple of skills that you need to have beforehand. One of them is that you can skip count, which is a skill you learn pretty early on in elementary school. One of them is that you kind of know your times tables to a certain extent. And the last one is that you can divide a 2 and 3 digit number by a 1-digit number, which is stuff that we've already practiced in class as well. So let's move on to the next slide. So the first question we start with is, first of all, just what are whole numbers? Whole numbers are numbers like 0 or 1 or 2 or 3 or 4, etc., and on up and up and up. So it starts at 0, worked its way on up. No decimals, nothing like that, but those are all the whole numbers. And so when we think about factors, we'd have to use whole numbers. So then the next question is to brainstorm ways of multiplying two whole numbers to get 12. And so when we do that, we get things like 1 times 12, we get 2 times 6, and we get 3 times 4. And all of those numbers multiplied together give us 12, right? 1 times 12 is 12, 2 times 6 is 12, etc. And so those numbers, those individual numbers, are called factors. And so what we can do is we can put them in order and say, well, 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, and 12, those are the factors of 12, okay? And finding number pairs that multiply to that given number help us to generate factors. So let's move on to the next slide. So the next question that they want us to look at is, how then could you show that 2 is a factor of 6? And we can use a multiplication question, or sorry, a multiplication statement to show that 2 is a factor of 6, because what we can say is that 2 times 3 equals 6. And so then there's that second follow-up question is, well, does this show us another factor of 6? And well, yes, it does, because what we have there is that the number 3 is also going to be a factor of 6. So once we start figuring out number pairs that multiply to a specific number, that will give us at least, 2 different factors. So then a couple of exercises just to practice. We're asked here to write a multiplication equation that shows, first of all, that 5 is a factor of 10, and what we can say, well, then is that 5 times 2 equals 10. And then again, this shows us at least 2 factors, actually technically 3 factors of 10. It shows us 5 and 2, and then 10 is a factor. The number itself is a factor of itself. The next one there is to show that 8 is a factor of 80. And so what we would do is say, we said 8 times 10 equals 80. And again, that shows us, those 2 factors, 8 and 10. And then the one down here says we can also prove, maybe you can't see that over my my camera, but it says we can also prove that one number is a factor of another number by skip counting. And so what we could do here is we could try to skip count by 5 to get to 10. We could say, well, 5, 10. And so 5 would become a factor then because we can get to 10, get to the number, our target number. We could skip count by 8s and see if we get to 80. So you could go 8, 16, 24, 32, 40, 48, 56, 64, 72, and 80. And because we land on our target number, then we know that 8 for sure is a factor of 80. Okay, so the next one is to just write a multiplication equation that shows that 1 is a factor of 2, and what we would say is, well, 1 times 2 equals 2, and then the other one here is that 1 is a factor of 15. We would say 1 times 15 equals 15. Now, 1 is going to be a factor of every number, because every target number times 1 is going to be the number. And so 1 is going to be a factor of every number. And if you skip count by ones, you're going to hit every whole number. So that's just, maybe it's a little bit obvious, but also it's good to remember that 1 is going to be a factor of every number. Okay, and so 1 is a factor of every number. And then when you count by ones, what number do you reach? Every number, every whole number you will reach. All right, so if I want to find all the factors of 10, here is a picture that we can use to help us. It's kind of like figuring out in an organized way, without doing a whole lot of extra work, all the factors of 10. And so if we look here and say, well, 0 times what number equals 10? Well, realistically, no number times 0 will ever equal any number other than 0. And so we're just going to put an X in that box. For 10, 1 times 10 is going to be 10. So that gives us a factor pair. 2 times 5 is going to give us 10. And for 3, we'll put an X there because nothing will give us 10 when we multiply by 3. Now, do we need to keep going? Do we need to go to 4? We can, but again, there's going to be an X there. And then once we get to 4, you don't have to really go much further because we've already got 5 over here. Okay, and then the next question is, can a number greater than 10 be a factor of 10? And the answer to that is no. You can't have a number bigger than the target number itself as a factor. Once we start looking at numbers greater than the target number, we move away from factors and start talking more about multiples. And so just as a good rule of thumb, a factor will never be bigger, ever be bigger than the target number itself. Okay. So then if we want to find all the factors of 12, and we want to do it in that organized way, you can say, well, 1 times 12 equals 12. 2 times 6 equals 12. 3 times 4 equals 12. 4 times 3, that's a bit repetitive, but anyway. So maybe I'll erase that. So I've got 4. 5 times, there would be no number that equals 12. 5 times no number. And we've already got 6. So I've got all the factor pairs, all the factors of 12 here. I've got 1 and 12 and 2 and 6 and 3 and 4. And then I don't need to repeat 6 times 2 or 4 times 3 or 12 times 1 because I've already got them. So I'm not going to repeat them. We can do the same thing for 14 and say, well, I know that 1 times 14 is 14. I know 2 times 7 equals 14. 3 times no number equals 14. 4 times no number equals 14. 5 times no number equals 14. And 6 times no number equals 14. Sorry that I got a little bit low there. I'll move it up. It's hard to move around. Anyway, so, and then once I've done 6, I've already got 7 up here. So all my factors of 14, 1, 14, 2, and 7, those are all the factors of those numbers. Now, I wonder if a number that is more than half of 18, other than 18 itself, will be a factor of 18. So in other words, not counting 18 itself, when you get past 9, can any of those numbers be a factor of the target number, right? And so if we start skip counting by tens, you say, well, 10, 20, no, that gets passed. If you do 11, you'd have 11 and then 22, and that gets passed. If you try 13, you'd have 13 and 26, and that gets passed really quick. And so what we should notice is that you'll never have a number other than the target number itself more than half. That's maybe oddly worded. You'll never have a factor larger than half the number as a factor except for the target number itself. Maybe that's a bit clearer. Because otherwise you'll get like the second number you skip count will get past the target number. Okay. All right. So then the exercise here is to find all the factors of 18 by checking only the numbers from 1 to 9. And then don't forget to include 18 as a factor of itself. So I'm actually just going to delete that. Not that it's bad advice, but just I need the room. All right, I'll get to that in a second. Okay, so what I'm going to do then is I have 1 times 18 is going to be a factor. Those are factors. 2 times 9 is going to work. 3 times 6 is going to work. 4 times nothing. 5 times nothing. And then I don't really need to go much past because I've got the halfway point. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 6, 9, and 18. So those are all of my factors of 18. 1, 2, 3, 6, 9, and 18. We can do this. You can do the same thing for 30. You can do that on your own. You wouldn't have to go anywhere past 15. Okay. Now, at this point, we're almost 12 minutes into the video. If you would like, you can pause right here on this video and you can get into the workbook on page 125 and 126. We'll just pull the workbook down. Yeah, you can look at page 125 and you can do numbers 1 to 3. But if you don't want to, you just keep watching the video. I have just 1 or 2 more slides. But if you want, just pause for a second and quickly do 1 to 3. All right. So factors of a number, we've talked about this a couple times already, that they come up in pairs. So 3 times 4 is 12, so 3 and 4 are a factor pair of 12. So then can you find all the factor pairs of 12? We've kind of done this a little bit already. So we have 1 times 12, so 1 and 12 are factor pairs, 2 and 6, and then obviously 3 times 4. Those are all the factor pairs for 12. Lastly, and I wonder if I can move this video. Oh, I can move myself over. Oh, that's handy. Okay, so then we can use this chart and look at it very organizedly, right? And so notice down here, 12 is half of 24, so I don't have to do anything above 12 or greater than 12 until I get to 24. So that's why they've skipped from 12 to 24. So 24, 1 and 24 is a factor pair. 2 and 12, 3 and 8, 4 and 6, 5 and nothing, 6 and 4. Ooh. Huh. That's interesting. I don't seem to be able to write any numbers. Interesting. Anyway, so at this point, I've got this big chart, but I don't have to go any further because if I go beyond 4, I start repeating myself, right? 6 and 4 and 8 and 3 and 12 and 2 and 24 and 1. I've already listed all those things. So I don't have to go anywhere beyond that. So all my factor pairs, 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 8, 12, and 24, those are all of the factors of 24. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 8, 12, and 24 are all the factors of 24. Anyway, that is all I have for this video. The last one is just the workbook. It's page 125 and 126. Thanks for watching. Have a great day, and talk to you soon.